The morning sunlight spilled through the cafe windows like a blessing, but inside the air felt heavy with silent judgments. People sipped their coffee, scrolling through their phones, living in their own little worlds, until a loud, sharp sound cut through the calm like a knife. A bully had just slapped a man. Not a stranger, but a single dad, sitting alone with his little boy, trying to keep life together after everything he had lost. The slap was more than physical. It was an insult to his dignity, a challenge thrown in front of everyone who had chosen to stay quiet. For a moment, the entire cafe froze. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The bully stood there, chest puffed, smirking as if he had won. But he didn't know the man he had just attacked was not an ordinary father. He was a Delta Force legend, someone trained to face the worst chaos humanity could offer, and the world had never seen him truly angry. If you believe in kindness and second chances, please hit the like button, comment below, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. His name was Caleb Matthews, and he had been a hero in a war nobody wanted to remember. Years ago, Caleb had served in Delta Force, leading missions that required courage beyond what most people could imagine. He had seen violence so raw it could scar a person's soul. He had seen friends die in ways that made the world feel unfair, but he had survived, and he returned home with the kind of strength that didn't show itself in muscle but in silence. He never bragged. He never talked about his past. He carried it like a hidden wound, deep inside. After leaving the military, he chose a quiet life, one that revolved around his son, Noah, who was only 8 years old. Caleb worked long hours at a local warehouse and spent every spare moment being a dad. He made pancakes on weekends, helped with homework, and read bedtime stories with a voice that made Noah feel safe. But the weight of the world didn't disappear just because he wanted it. The nights were the hardest. When Noah slept, Caleb's mind would replay moments from the war. The sounds, the fear, the faces. He never wanted to burden his son with those memories. He wanted Noah to grow up believing the world was good. He wanted him to be kind. So Caleb kept his pain locked inside, letting it remain his alone. He had also suffered a painful divorce. His ex-wife had left without warning, taking their home, leaving Caleb with nothing but the boy in the dream that one day things would get better. On that day, Caleb had decided to treat Noah to a small celebration. Noah had done well in school, and Caleb wanted to reward his effort. They chose a cozy cafe in Houston, Texas, where the smell of cinnamon rolls and fresh coffee made the world feel gentle. Caleb watched Noah's face light up as he ordered a hot chocolate and a slice of cake. For a moment, Caleb felt like he had won at life. He felt like the war was behind him. He felt like a normal dad again. Then the bully appeared. His name was Trent, a loud, arrogant man in his late 20s who always seemed to be searching for someone weaker than himself. Trent had noticed Caleb and Noah, and he saw something he could exploit. Maybe it was the way Caleb kept his head down, or the tired look in his eyes. Maybe it was the fact that Caleb sat alone with his son and didn't have anyone else to defend him. Whatever it was, Trent chose that moment to make himself feel powerful. He walked up to Caleb's table, leaned in, and started mocking him, making rude comments about being a single dad, about his job, about his past. The words were cruel, but Caleb stayed calm. He had learned to control his anger. He had learned that reacting would only make things worse. But Trent didn't stop. He laughed loudly, trying to humiliate Caleb in front of everyone. Noah's smile faded. He looked up at his father with fear in his eyes, and for the first time in his life, Caleb felt his heart break in a way that wasn't from war, but from the pain of failing his son. He wanted to protect Noah from the cruelty of the world. He wanted to show him that being strong didn't mean fighting. It meant standing up for what was right. Then Trent slapped Caleb across the face. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Silence swallowed the room. People stared, unsure whether to intervene. Noah began to cry, his little body shaking with fear. Caleb's cheeks stung, but he didn't react. He didn't shout. He didn't hit back. He simply looked at Trent with a calm so deep it made the bully hesitate. Trent expected a reaction. He expected Caleb to explode. He expected to see fear. But what he saw was something else. something that unsettled him. Caleb's eyes were steady, like a man who had faced death and refused to blink. The kind of man who had survived because he didn't waste energy on panic. Trent felt his own courage crumble. But he didn't walk away. He continued to insult Caleb, now more furious than before because his victim hadn't reacted. He wanted control. He wanted dominance. He wanted to prove he was the stronger man. He pushed Caleb's shoulder, and Noah flinched again. Caleb's hands stayed still on the table. He took a deep breath, and in that moment he made a choice. Not to fight for pride, but to fight for his son's future. Caleb stood up slowly, and the cafe seemed to hold its breath. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't make threats. He simply looked Trent in the eyes and spoke in a quiet, controlled tone. Trent's smirk began to fade. He realized this man was not a man to be toyed with. The people around them began to stir, whispering, reaching for their phones, uncertain whether to call the police. Noah stood behind his father, trembling, and Caleb wrapped his hand around his son's shoulder, pulling him close. Trent lunged forward, and for a moment it seemed like chaos was about to erupt. But Caleb moved like a shadow, fast, precise, and controlled. He didn't strike Trent with violence. He didn't humiliate him. He disarmed him, using a technique that left Trent stunned and on the floor, unable to move. It was a silent victory, the kind that didn't require a show of strength. It was the kind of victory that came from discipline and restraint. The cafe erupted into shocked whispers. Someone called the police. Someone else asked if Caleb was okay. But Caleb's face remained calm. He helped Trent up, not out of kindness, but because he knew that humiliation would only breed more violence. Trent looked at Caleb with a mixture of fear and respect, realizing that the man he had tried to break was stronger than he could ever imagine. The police arrived quickly. Caleb explained what happened, but he didn't exaggerate. He didn't want to punish Trent. He only wanted justice. He wanted the bully to understand that hurting someone else wasn't a way to prove strength. It was a sign of weakness. The officers listened and nodded, and Trent was taken away. The cafe slowly returned to normal, but the energy in the room had changed. People had seen something rare. A man who refused to be broken after the incident. Caleb sat back down with Noah. The boy looked up at his father with eyes full of questions. Caleb held him close and whispered that everything would be okay. He told Noah that the world would always have people who tried to bring others down, but what mattered was how you responded. He told him that strength wasn't about fighting back with anger. It was about protecting the people you love and never losing your humanity. In the days that followed, Caleb's story spread through the community. People talked about the single dad who stood up to a bully without losing his dignity. They spoke about the quiet courage it took to remain calm in the face of cruelty. And while Caleb didn't seek attention, he couldn't ignore the fact that his son was watching him, learning what it meant to be a man. Noah began to feel proud of his father, not because he was a warrior, but because he was a protector. Caleb also began to heal in a way he hadn't expected. The incident forced him to confront his past, to realize that he didn't have to carry the war inside him forever. He started to open up to friends, to seek support, and to allow himself to feel again. He began to understand that his son needed more than a strong body. He needed a father who was emotionally present. And the greatest change came from the bully himself. Trent, after being released, faced the consequences of his actions. He was ashamed, and he began to rethink his life. He had spent years hurting others to feel powerful, but he realized that power wasn't something you stole. It was something you earned through respect. Caleb's story didn't end in violence. It ended in transformation. He showed a community that kindness could be stronger than cruelty, and that one man's restraint could change the path of another person's life. The cafe, once a place of fear, became a place of hope. And Caleb, the Delta Force legend, continued to live his quiet life with his son, still scarred by the past but no longer defined by it. Before the story ends, I want to ask you something special. Comment below with the word hope if this story reminded you that kindness and strength can coexist. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support means a lot. and it helps us create more stories that inspire and uplift.